And then you need to start a process by which you're identifying who your eligible employees are. And for most car wash businesses, that won't be a particularly difficult scenario because you're not employing lots of people in most situations. But at this stage, and I don't know whether Ben's got any further information on this, Ben, but we haven't had anyone say to us that the tax department's been back to them at the moment. Is that understanding?
Sorry, there's unmute. No, I'm in the same situation. I actually got the text message this morning after registering 3 weeks ago, saying that there's information now up on the ATO website for JobKeeper. But from my initial reading of it, I think a lot of the questions that have been sent through have been, I suppose, clarified a little bit, but not entirely. So my view is I'm still digesting a lot of that information there. But as for official notes from the ATO, so this might be something more for Tony. He might have a better sense being from the tax area. Would that be correct?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Graham, those that don't know me, Tony Young, ACWA Director and Treasurer, Chartered Accountant, Registered Tax Agent for the past 25 years. But more importantly for those on the meeting, I'm a multi-site car wash operator, Hunter Valley and Mid-North Coast. So what I recommend, the guys are right. Look, there's a fair bit of confusion about the actual implementation, and that's in regards to a lot of the questions. What I suggest is take ownership of it yourself, because just about every accountant in Australia right now is absolutely under the pump. Some are over it. Some who say they're over it aren't over it. Take ownership yourself. In the last 20 hours, I'm just looking at the ATO website right now. They've done a great job. They've brought up the actual application forms for yourself as an employer and the application forms for the employees. So great resource there. It's saying that it's from the 20th of April onwards. In other words, they're making it up they're figuring out as we go. So, but having said that, as Graham said, it's a really good initiative. Will apply to the vast majority of us. And I suggest even if you think you will be eligible, don't worry about down the track. We'll get to that when it happens. Register your interest as you can do right now. and then follow the procedures about registering for your business and with your employees as well. I think the best thing here is be right on top of your numbers, be right on top of your BAS, be right on top of your single touch payroll, because that's how they intend to implement the reimbursement, the refund of the JobKeeper payment.
Right. Doug, do you want us to just go through some of these questions and see, and that might open up some discussion? Doug, you're muted if you.
No, yeah. Let's just fire through those questions we have, and then, as I said, anybody who wants to send a message, they can do that via the chat, and we'll accumulate those questions and answer them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we can just maybe I'm going to start with some of the questions that we've got from an email that Fiona sent this morning.
I'm not going to ask any questions unless I text Ruth. What happened there?
So someone's talking on not on mute there. Anyway, listen, let's go through the questions, right, one by one, and we'll start. That might just open up some discussion, right? So we've got one from which talks about a majority of my employees are retired tradespeople. Some casuals only earn a maximum of 360 per fortnight, and one casual has an average wage of 1,200 per fortnight. Most casuals also receive a pension from Centrelink. If they now receive $1,500 a week, I assume this will impact on their pension, and some may opt out of the JobKeeper payments and want to keep their regular hours. I insist that they receive JobKeeper payments, as this program is designed to support employers and keep employers' wage costs. So basically, we're having some people in their personal circumstances, whether it be the fact that they're on pensions, or alternatively, in some cases, JobSeek, the unemployment benefit with the COVID top-up might come into effect here. There could be a range of different things. The question seems to be is, can an employer require an employee to register, or not register, be part of the JobKeeper system? And I don't know, I'm not absolutely sure the answer to this one, Ben. I don't know whether you've looked at this. It does seem to me that there seems to be some suggestion that the employer will just register eligible employees, and then the employee, if they want to get out of it, might have to do something about it. But I don't know the answer to this one, really.
I actually got the form this morning and filled it out for myself, for my business. And there is a tick box. There's two tick boxes. One is it's the employer giving it to the employee, and the employee is basically declaring, yes, I want to receive the JobKeeper allowance, or no, I don't want to receive it. Now, that application, and I need to clarify, but it says that we have to keep that declaration for 5 years as part of our record. So my business will keep it for 5 years. But I think it's only so I can show that I gave that form to my worker if they're tracking me down in 2 to 3 years' time and say that there was discrepancies with your JobKeeper payment. Now, I could not see on there, maybe I missed something where it had to be emailed away to the ATO. I think that may be because the signature on it was electronic or email. So I suppose there needed to be some sort of acknowledgement. And there's someone talking in the background.
Can you give me a call tomorrow if you need to.
Is it Greg?
Anyway, Greg Scott, can you please mute yourself, mate? You're really interfering with what's going on. So can you just mute yourself, please, buddy? Thanks. And same to everyone else. If you haven't muted yourself, please mute. If you're not talking, you have to be on mute. Thank you.
Yeah, so sorry to get a little bit off there, but Tony, would you be able to, have you seen that form that they need to, that the employees need to send their declaration? No, he's just muted himself.
Nope, there we go. Yeah, look, I've got the form in front of me right here. There's one for the employer, there's one for the employee. If the employee chooses not to be part of the JobKeeper scheme, they can opt out of it. Look, I'm just trying to think when those circumstances would be. It could be that it affects their pension. look, the pension, the job seeker payment, that's something completely separate. I would think in that question there that most people would opt in with their employer because they're probably going to be better off, to be honest, than if they were on the pension or job seeker.
Yeah, there is one of the questions that came through from Fiona was specifically on that for a person on pension, which so that's what led me to the clicking of no. But again, it's an individual assessment, I suppose. We all still have the power of choice.
Yeah, so the short answer is probably that, and I can understand why the employer would want the employee to register with them so that they get the benefit of the payment. But in short, it looks to me from the discussion we just had that there is going to be a way of the employees effectively opting out of that system if they want to, which means you really need to have a discussion with your employees and explain why it's important for the business that they do elect JobKeep with you. We've already had a number of situations with our clients where a person has 2 jobs and they can only elect with one employer. And there's been a bubble between people over which employer they're going to elect with, right? But discussions, I mean, I've said right from the beginning with all our clients, you know, one of the real ways to get the best outcome of this whole process with this JobKeeper or job seeker, whatever you're calling it, is to have open discussions with your employees and explain the facts of life to them, right? The fact that we're all in the same boat here and we're all trying to get through it, that gives you some chance. But, you know, in some situations, there's going to be where a person's got 2 jobs and 2 eligibilities, they can only claim one. The person's going to have to make choices. And also people who are on pensions and that might also make choices because they get things like rent relief and other bits and pieces, which they may, in their view, see as a better thing than the JobKeeper arrangement. But again, have a discussion with them, and you know, it's clear from what Tony and Ben have said by looking at the forms, which I haven't seen as yet. It's clear from that there's going to be a method for people to opt out. So having discussions, explaining the facts of life to them and trying to encourage them to take it is going to be the way to go forward, it seems, on this one.
Yeah, Graham, it would seem to me also that if you've got somebody who's on a pension who's already got the top up, the previous top up that happened several weeks ago to all pension holders, that they couldn't then top up again on the JobKeeper. That would be logical to me. What they're trying to do is use the tax system to get this out to everybody as wide as possible. So I don't think you'd be able to double dip that. That'd be the other principle you'd want to be looking at, I think.
Yeah.
That's just my view. But, you know, they're trying. You couldn't take the top up in your pension, then take a JobKeeper top up as well as that. I just don't think you'll get away with that.
Yeah, well, they certainly said you're making it pretty clear that if you make the wrong decisions, they'll have to back pay people and that sort of stuff. So people who are on Social Security and have got to notify the ATO about their situation. And if they don't, there's going to be strife. But we just have to sit back and wait and see. That position might become a little bit clearer as the ATO goes through the process of, you know, approving these people and things like that. But we'll just have to wait and see a little bit on that one. Okay. I don't know whether John Roberts is online. Is John there?
No, I don't think he is.
No. Okay. Well, that's where the question came from. So I'm just wondering if that's answered his question.
Yes, I am online.
Oh, sorry,
I am online.
Does that answer your question or not?
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. Thank you.
Okay, no problems. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we have a second question from Leon. Please explain the mechanics and the timing of nominating JobKeeper candidates to the ATA. Are directors, owners, Sorry, I think someone was talking then, but are directors or owners entitled to claim JobKeeper? And are junior staff earning less than the adult entitled to the full amount? Or is it prorated? So let's go to the easy one last. So junior staff that qualify get the full amount. It's not prorated, right? Anyone who's either Tony or Ben, if you think I'm wrong about this, just feel jump in, because I'm sure one thing we know for sure is not everybody knows every answer to this thing. So feel free to jump in and correct me if you think I'm wrong. Okay?
Oh, you're spot on there, Graham. That's correct. It's counterintuitive, but
yes, that's right. So, okay, so are directors or owners entitled to the JobKeeper payment? In many cases, yes, they are, but there can only be one director or one owner of the business gets it. So if you've got a business with 2 owners and the business qualifies, then only one of the directors would get it potentially, right? It's also the same with shareholders and partners and things like that. And when those businesses, there's often qualification capacity for people who are owners of businesses, but they do only get one person within the group. So that should produce some interesting discussions amongst people when you look at the tax implications about these things. Right? And the mechanics and timing of the nominating of the JobKeeping. Now, I understood it was going to be the 26th of April. You had to have everyone back in for the initial payment, but I think Tony might have, or Ben might have said the 20th. Is that, can someone clarify that? About when we have to have our first lot of start information to the ATO?
Okay, well, I'm just looking at the ATO website, and this was only updated 20 hours ago, so it's the most current. Just if you just type in JobKeeper payment, ATO, it takes you to it, and it's really well written. It's very easy to follow.
Yes.
So that's what I was saying. Take ownership, click through. It says it registers from the 20th of April onwards. Look, I've already implemented it in our car washing business, and we pay weekly. So I've actually implemented the JobKeeper payments. Look, just to go through so that I know it myself for our business and for clients, and to pass this on as well. So register, fill the forms out. That can all happen down the track. But the idea right now is if you've got the reserves, it's about pumping the economy, getting the money into the hands of your employees. So the idea is that they go and spend it, hopefully on car washing, which I did this morning at one of my competitors. You know, the idea is to get out there and spend it. The actual mechanics, whether you're paying weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, jump on the ATO website there. It explains it in detail, and then in detail on how you will be reimbursed from the 1st of May onwards. All keys around doing your single touch payroll, filing your BASs, and then seeing the credits, the actual cash refunds in this circumstance with JobKeeper coming through.
You want to add anything there, Ben?
No, Tony's hit it quite succinctly. I've not been able to find whether the employer part is yet, but I'm guessing that's in the tax agent part. I've just got to have a little bit more of a look around. I found the employee thing. We're still working through what employees would qualify. We've got our lists in there at the moment, but I suppose like I said, go back to it's a conversation between you and your employees, and there is a big advantage in doing this, but the reality is the carrying of that money for a couple of weeks. But yeah, the bottom line of this is the person has the option. They're out of a job, they go to JobSeeker, or they go to JobKeeper. So we become the administrators for the government in that area. And it's a lot easier to pay one business to pay 5 people than it is to pay 5 people. So there's a bigger advantage in that area, and the whole thing is to get the cash out there for us. So I've implemented it in my business, and we're going to run out to I deal with a few clients in the car wash industry, hence my reason for being here. So we will be running that out to them at the moment. We're basically drip feeding them, and with the information that comes to our knowledge on how it's going to work. So as far as that original question regarding the mechanics of it, I see it as that you would pay the worker and then wait for the money to come in. So, there is that disadvantage of you carrying someone for around about 3 weeks to a month without, but I suppose the other side of the coin is the advantage is if that person is on, then you're basically getting a rebate of $1,500 a fortnight. So, you can get a lot of things done in that area where, and my understanding under the Fair Work Act is reasonable actions can be taken to redeploy people, but the key word is they're reasonable. So, Graham, would you agree with that, or am I getting off topic a bit there?
Oh, well, it's probably slightly off the topic, but it's certainly a relevant point. Ben's, there is going to be capacity under these things to change the duties of people within reasonable capacities, as long as it's within their reasonable skills and abilities. They don't necessarily have to do their normal work. So if you've got maintenance that can be done, or cleaning that can be done, or something like that, you know, there's all sorts of things that these people might be utilised for during this process. But we'll probably come to that when one of the questions a bit later. So I'll just move on from that if I can. I've got that question was from Leon in Melbourne. Is Leon on board?
Yes, Graham.
Did that answer your question, Leon?
It does. Yeah, no, very good. Thank you.
Okay, cheers. Right.
Graham, just before we go on, we last time we touched on international students being allowed into the JobKeeper program.
Yeah.
Has that changed, or is that still the same, or have I?
No, international students are out, as far as I understand. That's only New Zealand visa holders, and people are on permanent residence visas who get the thing. It's caused a real problem in some areas where 457 and 485 visas are involved. People having to leave the country and all sorts of things. And some people have got their families here, you know, and they're having to put up stumps. Then they can't get back because of the border closures. So people on visas are in a bit of a bind on this one. They don't qualify for JobSeeker either. You know?
And they're definitely out of the equation, and nothing looks like it's changing in that regard.
Well, nothing that I'm aware of at the moment. So I know there's a lot of pressure on it, but it's it would be expensive for the government, and I imagine they won't be that keen to bring it in.
And the other one that was quite confusing last time, and we've had a question this morning, is around casual employees not being with the company for 12 months, but their anniversary date, say, falls on the 1st of June.
Yeah, I understand that. But from what I can see, this is a situation where a person might have been with the business 9 months on the 1st of March, but is going to qualify in a few months for a 12-month period. But as the reading of the thing seems to suggest, that you have to be there 12 months on the 1st of March. And it doesn't matter if it's a day afterwards, it's not going to be 12 months. And as a result, you won't qualify. Ben, Tony, any comment?
Probably, Graham.
Just unmute yourself, mate.
I'm sorry.
No, there's me. Sorry, I see it the same way, Graham. But again, there may be some changes. That's over to you, Tony.
Thanks, guys. So let me pose this to Ben and to Graham. The definition of part-time. So if you have, and that was a really good question. I spent some time looking at it this morning, and last night, that question coming through about on the anniversary date. And yeah, Graham, I absolutely agree with you. But if the intentions are here, what about the definition of part-time? Is it possible that you could go back and reclassify that casual as a part-time person to make them eligible? It would just see that you would have them where you're changing the payroll system, that they would be now eligible for pro rata entitlements.
Well,
I don't know if that's. I'm just looking for ways to.
Yes, I understand where you're coming from, Tony. In fact, it's been suggested by a number of our clients that they would like to do that in certain circumstances. Now, the only issue I would say is that when you do your tax declaration, you tick a box on there saying whether you're part-time, casual, or full-time. That goes to the ATO. I don't know whether the anti-avoidance, I mean, they've got a whole bunch of stuff in there, or certainly been talking a lot about the issue of engaging in conduct which qualifies, you know, which would change their qualification. I don't know whether that would something the ATO would be happy about or not, but you'd have the other issues associated with it. I was like, okay, so you would have qualified for pro rata entitlements. You'd also be paying them a casual rate when you're actually employing them as a part-time employee, so they'd be 25% up above the award rate. There'd be a whole series of issues that might arise from that, and whether the ATO would even be happy with it, I'd just be guessing. I mean, that's just not my area, Tony. I don't deal with the ATO that much. I'd defer to your guidance on that issue, because I'd be guessing, you know?
Yeah, I'm suggesting that you're right. Part 4A, the integrity measures, it's just that this has been put to me a number of times. How do I create this situation? It does go back to your TFN declaration, which has been filed. It has a start date there. So if you're thinking of that, my suggestion is tread very carefully.
that would be my advice. I think there's a potential downside to be pretty high in that one if it come unstuck. But
Can I just raise one more thing? And I fear the news here is not going to be great.
yeah,
We've got a member who only recently opened their car wash around about 12 September.
yeah.
Therefore, no staff for 12 months, nor income from March 2019 for proving the downturn. What approach should they take?
Well, they're not. I'm assuming you were talking about casual staff. No casual staff have been there 12 months. They don't employ part-time or full-time staff.
Correct.
Because there's no requirement for there's no requirement for full-time or part-time staff to be there 12 months. It's only the casuals that have to be working on a systematic basis. Just to clarify that issue. But if they've only been there less than a year, it depends on, as I understand this, and again, Tony might be better on this one, because a business doesn't have to operate for 12 months necessarily, as long as they can establish a loss as a result of the ATO has discretion here to take into account special circumstances. And if the normal practice is going to be, and this sort of covers off one of the questions that will come up later, is what comparison periods do you use? And typically it's going to be the same qualifying period in the previous 12 months, right? So the same GST cycle in the previous 12 months. You can't sort of pick the cycle you want just to get in there under the scheme. If it's March 2019 or 2020, it'll be March 2019 you compare against, right? But some businesses don't fall into that. Some businesses have lumpy sort of turnover and that sort of thing. And so the tax commissioner does have capacity to make their own tests as to how this will apply. And if a car wash has been operating and has suffered a loss, but it's only been operating 6 months, I'm assuming they'll apply for an exception under the legislation, and the government will, or the tax commissioner will have a look at their scenario and determine what that might be. But
I wonder if ACWA might be able to play a role here, Tony, Neil and others, where, you know, in this particular circumstance or in a circumstance like this, maybe we can approach other car washers in the area, find out what their downturn has been, get sort of some statement from them and use that as a support for the application.
It would certainly be a possibility, but I'd probably be inclined to wait and see what the ATO how it looks at some of these things. From what I can see, the ATO is not going to be trying to exclude people from this payment if they have a legitimate cause, right, for it. It's not like the normal tax rules where they're trying to screw you for everything they want. On this occasion, they're trying to get you, actually trying to get money out to people. So yes, there may be a range of ways, but the tax commissioner does have discretion. And if you put a reasoned argument to them, I suspect there's a fair chance you'll get it up. But Tony, again, more used to dealing with the tax department, so I'd be interested in what your view was.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. I've thought a fair bit about this, how they're going to implement the integrity measures down the track, and it'll be based around the lodgement of your BASs, whether it be quarterly, whether it be annually, whether it be monthly. And if you don't, if they, and they'll run an algorithm on it, and if they don't see a drop in revenue over that period, then have no doubt you'll get a please explain letter down the track. And that's how they've operated for many years now. Very powerful systems. So, yeah, the vast majority of people on today lodge a quarterly BAS. If you don't have that 30% or more drop in revenue, then go drill in and have a really close look on a monthly basis. And that monthly basis, look, it doesn't have to be from the 1st to the end of the month. It can be from the 15th through to the 14th, the following month. There's no guidance on that, whether it's cash, whether it's accrual. What it is if you have been impacted, then apply and have those, what we call in the game here is have that backing work paper. Get your accountant to confirm, or bookkeeper if you feel that's necessary, and then apply. Make sure that you're eligible, that you're not being reckless. And then look at your eligible employees and get this JobKeeper payment coming in, and then attribute it to your employees, eligible employees, and deal with it down the track. The key, as Graham said, is the Commission does have discretion. So for the member that's been operating for less than 12 months, there are some guidance on when you had to be in business. You meet that criteria, then it just comes down to the employees. There would be a discretion there, and as Doug said, because we don't have prior year numbers, then yes, that's something in that area. I'm sure the other members would be happy to help out, not disguising that commercial confidence of what their turnover is, but some sort of generic support letter, and that's what our organisation in these crazy times is here to support that. Here to support that member.
Yeah, Doug, just Neil here. I think just from the association point of view, I think, as Tony's talked about, really, it's really an accounting issue. So for that person, they just need to be talking to their accountant, getting the advice off their financial advisor, who's best positioned to give them that advice. And then if they need any support from there, then I'm sure they could come back to us and we could help them. I think that's probably the best way we handle that.
Okay, all good. Graham, sorry, I jumped in there with a couple of questions, but you might want to pick up on the ones you already have.
Yeah, okay. Well, just while we're sort of on that topic of communicating with the tax department, Tony and Ben, because you've had a look at the forms. As I understand it, Tony, you're going to have to produce information to the tax commissioner on a relatively regular basis during this to make sure that you're continuing to qualify. Do you have any guidance on that?
My understanding that's only for sole traders.
Right.
If you're an employer in a different entity, then you only need to meet the criteria for that minimum 1 month period, and then the JobKeeper payment will continue for the 6 months.
Right. Okay. Well, I wasn't aware of that, but so Ben, do you have anything you want to add to that? Or?
No, I concur.
Okay, well that's helpful. So it makes a little life a bit easier for people. And if you're a sole trader, well, bad luck, right? You'll have to work that out. Right? Okay, so look, I might just go to the next question if that's all right. I've got a question from Len in Western Australia. The business didn't qualify in March for JobKeeper, but will definitely qualify in April. Casual employees worked for us for 12 months on May 5th. I think we've discussed the casual, unfortunately. He's probably not going to qualify because he wasn't 12 months on the 1st of March, which is the key date here. All right, so I'm afraid it doesn't look like he's going to qualify. And I think the first, just because you didn't qualify in March for the JobKeeper doesn't mean that we don't qualify in April. When you submit your information to the ATO, you use your April figures, because the actual JobKeeper payment, the first payment is actually from the period of the 30th of March to the 12th of April, right? So it doesn't go back to March. The payments are not backdated to March. They're only backdated to the April figure, to the 30th of April, 30th of March. So I don't think the qualification will be an issue for the business, but the employee, I'm afraid you're probably going to miss out on that one, unfortunately. Tony or Ben, anything to add?
I agree, Graham. That's spot on.
Yep. Len, if you're on board, did you understand that? If I know Len's there, there's a couple of Lens here.
Yeah, I did. Thanks, Graham. So just to clarify, there was a second part of that question, but I think you answered it anyway. So we are saying just to clarify, once we qualify, will that backdate to March, and also is it ongoing for the duration?
Well, Tony's just said it's ongoing for the duration once you're qualified, right? Assuming you're a company, right?
Yes.
But the actual JobKeeper payments start from the period 30th of March onwards. The qualification date is the 1st of March. That's the date you have to have your staff employed. That's when they're looking at who qualifies from the 1st of March, but the actual back payment periods or the payment of the JobKeeper allowance is only from the 30th of March onwards for 6 months. Does that clarify, Len?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have a question from Greg in South Australia. How can we readily determine what our turnover is going to be for the next 6 months? Example is we're seeing fluctuating business activity 1 week, good week followed by a bad week. If we apply for the JobKeeper schemes, it turns out things aren't as bad as forecast. Employers have paid the $1,500 a fortnight, will have to refund the government, right? If they didn't suffer the 30% loss in business over the course of the 6 months. Tony, you seem to be across this issue. You're saying that they've only got to qualify once and then they get it. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, look, and I'm sure Greg's on here today. I guess the key thing there is you know, I go out and drive on the roads here in Newcastle. It's 400,000 people. Adelaide's 600,000 people, and it's impacted the sheer traffic numbers are way down, and hence that's why our revenue is down. Some weeks we're up, some weeks we're down because that's the nature of our game. But if you meet that criteria as a business, you only have to meet it for that minimum 1 month, and then you're into the system for 6 months. On top of that, then make sure your employees are eligible. If they're not eligible, unfortunately, there's winners and there's losers in this. Also creates, I've seen where this has created a divide between casual employees picking up the full $1,500 per fortnight, less the tax as well, as opposed to some part-timers. Unfortunately, winners and losers, and it has created a divide as well. That will come out over time, unfortunately. But if you meet the criteria, you're in there for 6 months. I guess what the fear is with Greg's question here is, and that's why we've implemented this already from the 30th of March, is that to start paying it. Make sure, and as Neil said, check with your accountant as well. It's pretty, I'm just looking at the website here, ACWA website, great information on there. Make a decision and run with it. If you feel then that you're not going to be eligible, then by all means stop those payments and figure out something with your employee on how it's going to be dribbled back to you over on the never never. So that's my recommendation there.
Okay, just bear with me a moment. Okay, look, I've just had a note come to me from a person who's listening, asking about or commenting on superannuation, and that the superannuation payments on the JobKeeper allowance. Now, that, as far as I can see it, understand, it very much depends on the circumstances of how that is being paid. Like, for example, if a person has been stood down and they are just receiving the JobKeeper arrangements, that means the business is effectively probably closed. It was probably not the case in the most case. Then super is not payable on that. But if an employee is working for on an ongoing basis and gets paid less than the $1,500 a fortnight, let's say they get $1,200 a fortnight for the business, but it's got to get topped up to $1,500. Then super is payable on the first $1,200, but is not payable on the next $300, right? And if a person is working, let's say, getting $1,800 a fortnight, then it's payable on the entire amount, right? So you've got to look at would that be right, Tony and Ben? Any objections?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, so you do have to look at your superannuation arrangements to make sure you're complying with your super. And there is plenty of information out on the government websites on that particular issue. It's not overly complex to work that one out, but just remember that there is superannuation payable in many cases, and one of the issues we'll see that in 2 or 3 years down the road, whether we see much, the superannuation people coming back and checking on people as far as whether they paid this correctly. So I hope that covers the question on that particular one. I'm just going to go to another couple of the questions reasonably quickly, but I just want to, then I'll come back to some chat ones that are coming in. JobKeeper scheme, does it apply to contractors? No, it doesn't apply to subcontractors. Ben, Tony, all in agreement there? So if a person's...
Correct. Very limited circumstances with contractors, and it's mentioned in the Treasury notes, but I haven't been able to find what those circumstances are. I'm thinking where it's where you have, especially like in the building industry, where you would have like a labour hire situation. That's the only thing I could think of, but
Yeah.
I don't think it would apply to car washing.
Yeah, subcontractors themselves, for an example, can qualify. You know, if they're sole traders and things like that. But not if you've got a subcontractor working for you. No, they don't apply. I'd get a little bit nervous about subcontractors working for a car dealership anyway, like a car wash anyway. But that's another question on its own, right? I think we've already covered this one, but I'll quickly answer. Roman answers, to be eligible for the JobKeeper program, you must demonstrate a profit loss of 30%. I don't think it's a profit loss, it's a turnover. Is that correct? Everyone know? Yep.
Correct.
Turnover loss of 30%. Can this be for any time last year or a certain period of March, a certain period, right? So when we're looking at it in a typical scenario, the same quarter this year or the same month of this year will be compared to the same month and same quarter of the previous year to determine the loss in turnover, right? Yeah, so that would be the periods. There's got to be a corresponding period, except if there's an exceptional circumstance, right? And the ATO will tell you what to use if it's going to be an exceptional circumstance. Okay. I think Roman if you on board, is that clear?
All clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, cheers. Now I've got a Stuart from Queensland. My car wash has been operating since October and my staff are casual. Staff under 12 months get nothing. Yes, that's correct. And is there any way my staff can get relief should we be forced to close? In the event that you can't keep your staff on or the business closes, these staff in many cases will be eligible for the JobSeeker payments, which is different as JobKeeper. The JobSeeker is essentially the dole, or what we used to call New Start in the olden days. Now it's called JobSeeker. The government spends lots of money on this, but you know, not a lot of difference. And secondly, from the 27th of March, the JobSeeker component of it's subject to means testing and things like that, so that can be impacted on your partner's or husband or wife or partner's income, but that has been increased from 48,000, I think, to 97,000 from memory before you lose it completely. So you still get the JobSeeker in many cases, or at least part of it. And from the 27th of March, you're going to get this, what they call a COVID top-up payment, which is $275. So if you qualify for full JobSeeker and the COVID top-up, you end up with about $1,100 in that situation, as opposed to $1,500 under the JobSeeker. And you also might be eligible for rent relief and a few other bits and pieces. So, you know, that's if a person doesn't get the JobKeeper, but they do qualify for the other bits and pieces, you'll still get some money. You just have to look at your personal circumstances to work out exactly what that is going to be. Stuart, if you're online, did that cover off what you were asking?
I don't think he's online actually,
Okay.
Graham, but thanks for that.
Yeah. Now there was a note from Andrew Bastian. It was in the Northern Territory. I'm not sure that's something I can deal with. Doug, I don't know whether you want to comment on that one. Do you have that in front of you?
It's the question around the opportunity for car washers to perform the function of almost disinfecting government vehicles. So
yeah,
that might be something I need to actually have a look at. Sounds like a good opportunity, mind you.
Yeah, I can't. Obviously, it's not my area, that one, so I can't really help. I'm just trying to work out where my
Graham, I think just with that one, so if I could just jump in, I think that they just need to talk to their suppliers about that and get some advice. There's obviously some legal ramifications if you don't get it right as well. They'll need to consider. So it's a whole, you know, working with the inside of a car is completely different. So I think they just need to talk to suppliers about that. Would be my recommendation.
Right. I've lost my the chat things. Hang on, there we go. Let's see what that is.
There's a couple of questions that I've got here, Graham, about annual leave and parental leave and whether that's payable.
Yep. I'm just trying to find things, but I can't find everything. Just give me a sec.
And also one here about Awash having a casual staff member who has a permanent part-time role with Coles, and whether the claim needs to be made with the permanent role rather than the casual one. That's correct, isn't it?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's up to the Coles, for example, probably won't qualify for the JobKeeper arrangement because they haven't had a drop of 30%. In fact, some people would argue they've had an increase of 30%. Right, so they're the ones that are in the business at the moment. You know, they won't be selling much toilet paper for the next 6 months, but anyway, that's another problem. Right, we'll get over that in due course. But this can come up when people have got 2 jobs, and there can be a squabble over who gets it. So if you get to your employer as quickly as possible and get them to sign up with you, you'll qualify. I don't think there's a requirement that they have to go with a permanent person first. I'm not sure I've seen anything on that. Ben or Tony, have anything on that?
Yeah, there is on the ACWA website. It talks about if you're a permanent employee. I only read that this morning. Obviously, you can only have one JobKeeper payment, and I'm pretty sure that I'm about 85% sure that it has to go with the permanent employer. In other words, the casual can't apply for it. The idea there behind that is that the employee doesn't have a full-time job, which they've still got, and a part-time job, and they're getting the JobKeeper increase in the amount of money for doing 1 or 2 shifts per week. And to me, that makes sense.
Sorry, are you saying just let me clarify that, because are you saying, I understood that there's nothing to prevent an employee who has been stood down under these arrangements from having another part-time job and still qualifying for JobKeeper with one of their employers? Is that you saying you don't believe that's the case?
No, what I'm saying here is, here's the example. I have a bookkeeper. She comes in 1 day per week. Let's assume that my business here is eligible for JobKeeper payment, but she also has a full-time job, permanent job, and that employer hasn't been impacted. In fact, she said that to me, that she hasn't been impacted. Then I'm starting to question whether she is an eligible employee for me doing 1 day per week to pick up or let's say 2 days per fortnight, and picking up the $1,500 on top of her permanent job. And to me, that makes sense that she shouldn't be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
That's only just come out literally in the last day. So just trying to get my head around that, because I had actually put my bookkeeper on the JobKeeper payment. Normally we'd pick up around about $300 for the day. She would then get the extra $250 on top and not have to do anything for it. So that's only literally come out, as I said, in the last 24 hours.
Right. Well, maybe we can put that one in the pending tray at the moment, unless Ben's got a piece of stunningly brilliant advice on the issue, right?
You know I don't.
Okay. Maybe we can put that in the pending tray for the moment, and we'll come back to whoever.
We'll have a dip at it a bit later on.
Yeah. So, we'll put that in the pending tray at the moment, and I'll come back to that. I've got a couple here. Just give me a second. I've sort of worked this out now. I'm a Zoom virgin today, so I'm just trying to work this out as we go. Right? Just hang on a minute.
Gee, I had something tacky to say then, but luckily I was muted.
Okay, so there's a question here that says, as of 30th of the 3rd, we had not reduced by 30%, but as from the 1st of the 4th, we now qualify. Can we pay from that date or a date set by the ATO? Well, as I said, I think we've already dealt this to a degree. The actual job seeker payment's only from the 30th of March onwards anyway. So it shouldn't make the fact that you didn't qualify in March shouldn't make any difference. I think we've dealt with Amanda's question, which says if the employee 12-month anniversary is after the 1st of March, I'm afraid they don't qualify. Sorry about that. I think we've dealt with Maisel's question about the new car wash. I think we've done that as well. You've got to go to the ATO to get a special assessment if you haven't got 12 months trading history. And then we've got my issue with the scenario, if we're down 30% on what we would expect to be with the continued fine weather we're having, but now we're actually up on the same time last year when it was wet. That's a variation of lumpy, what they call the lumpy trading conditions. But Tony's view on that one is that you're going to, once you qualify once, that is there for the next 6 months, assuming you're a company.
Correct.
Right, so that's that. We've got a new question here, just bear with a sec. Right. Eligibility for business support fund in the following circumstances. Guidelines state you need to employ staff in circumstances where car wash staff are provided by a labour hire company. Is the car wash company entitled to sorry, oops, I've just had a moment, my computer's gone funny, just give me a second. Right, sorry about that. I think I'm back. Sorry, I don't, Fiona, right? Can you sort of explain that one a bit? I'm not absolutely sure what's asking there.
Sure. The questions come through, it's relating to Victoria and it's from Rick. And he wants to know regarding the eligibility for the business support fund. In the circumstances, the guidelines state you have to employ staff, but where the car wash staff are provided by a labour hire company, is the car wash company entitled to the $10,000 business support fund?
Okay, all right. Now, I suppose there's two things. Firstly, I'm in Western Australia, so I don't know. This is a Victorian government scheme, I'm assuming, is it?
It is, yes,
It
Victorian
is.
government.
Right, and Ben's in Queensland, so he probably doesn't know either. Is Tony, where are you?
He's New South Wales.
Yeah.
Look, okay, so we may have to come back and find an answer to this one, but I can say that this has come up with one member who employs company staff through a labour hire company.
Yep.
And they are not eligible for JobKeeper because it's the labour hire company that has to demonstrate the loss.
Yeah.
Right? Now, Ben's nodding, so I'm assuming that's right, and you'd probably know a bit about this possibly.
So they do qualify, but they don't qualify through the car wash. They qualify potentially through the labour hire company.
That's right. But if the labour hire company hasn't had the necessary loss, then they won't necessarily get it. And I'm assuming then there's just a commercial discussion that's got to happen if the labour hire company qualifies. I imagine that they wouldn't be passing on a bill to the car wash. But anyway, that's something to be worked out between them.
The way I'm approaching it at the moment is the employees from a labour hire thing are my employees, and I qualify because I've got a lot of people in hospitality. Like I have a racetrack that I look after, so that's probably one of my biggest employers, and a tour guide company. So those two are definitely not. So I qualify. What we're going and asking our labour hire, our host employers, is say, these people qualify, they're my employees, do you want to put them on? I will bill you that $1,500 for the services or whatever, and then at the end of the month I will reimburse you when I get the money back from the government. So whether I reimburse you or rebate or what have you, but that's the way I'm attacking that at the moment. I haven't fully worked out the mechanics of it, but that's the way we're approaching it. I'm the employer, I qualify, they're my employees.
Yeah.
So, and I'm quite happy to pass that on to the service, because basically I see it as a bit of a free kick.
Yeah.
For them, because the alternative for that work is they go into JobKeeper.
Yeah.
Job seeker, sorry.
Seeker, yeah.
So
But-
Ben, your situation would be quite common for hire companies like that, because most people are sort of coming from that hospitality kind of background in that workforce situation, aren't they? So I would imagine that most employment providers would be in your circumstance.
I would think so. Although, you know, for example, I'm guessing in Victoria there'd be a lot more manufacturing than there is up here in Queensland. But if you're in manufacturing and food manufacturing, that really hasn't been affected. So yeah, we've got to really look at it. But I only need that 1 month to qualify for it, and I've got a workforce of a couple of hundred people. It's all up. It's about 500. But out of that, I think we did the math the other day, and a lot of casuals, I think we came up with about 80 that meet that 12-month test. So, and that's what we're going to our clients and saying, here's our pool, here's the options. Do you want to fund them for a month? And we will give you that money back at the end of the month. So again, it's a conversation between us, the employee, and the host employer. Does that help you there? Excellent.
Yep, thank you. Look, I don't want to divert because we actually still have quite a number of questions. It's been a lively topic, but we will have to end shortly. And the topic that we haven't covered off is around rent relief. And I wonder if I could get Tony Young to really quickly address that. If there's any specific question, I mean, a lot of the questions are similar, but slightly different as well. So we might have to try to cover those off, perhaps by an email to everybody. But Tony, would you mind really quickly covering that rent relief situation for us?
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, look, I'm looking at it from both sides. I'm a landlord for a car wash, and I'm also a tenant in a car wash situation. So once again, there's winners and there's losers here. The National Cabinet has come out with the Code of Conduct. It's just jump on the Treasury website, you can grab it, it gives examples, and it's very easy to understand. And that essentially is that should you be affected, then if you're a tenant, start talking to your landlord. If you're a landlord, start talking to your tenant. Then it's going to be borne proportionally of what the impact is. So quick example is if your rent that you're paying to your landlord is $10,000 and you've suffered a 50% reduction in your turnover, then moving forward, you only have to pay under your lease $5,000 of that $10,000. Half of the, or 25% or $2,500 will be waived, meaning you never have to pay that to your landlord. And the remaining 25%, $2,500, is then dribbled back to the landlord on the never, I think for a minimum of 2 years. So the issue I have with that is it really leaves your landlord in the lurch in regards to that. They then will need to go to their bank. And hopefully it's an Australian bank, not a foreign bank. But anyhow, that's their circumstances. As I said, I'm on both sides. I'm looking at both sides here and trying to be fair to my tenant who has had an impact, talking to them about it. And then on the other side of the coin, going to our landlords and saying, look, we've all supposed to share in this. The only issue I have with it is that there's no guidance on how to prove what the impact has been on your business. And my concern is that, and take our circumstances where we bought 2 car wash sites from an owner-operator. So I'm really reluctant to release my numbers to my landlord. That's just a personal thing. Maybe I'll just have to suck that up and show them the numbers to access that. Or I just say, right, I'm just going to keep paying you the rent. My fear is there that in case of a breach of lease, that the previous, my landlord, which is a previous owner operator, steps back into the site. So everyone's got these fears wrapped around that. That's an example there. But I think if hopefully common sense prevails, then talk to your landlord, talk to your tenant, come to some arrangement on sharing of the pain. So it'd be interesting to see how that one unfolds. I'll hand it back to you, Doug. Unless anyone's got any questions on that one.
Thanks, Tony. And our Victorian director, or just immediate past director, Reese, has put a whole lot of information on what you've just spoken about on the association Facebook forum group. So if anyone's on this Zoom call and is not in the forum group, if you email me, I can invite you and accept you into that group. It's quite lively. There's quite a few postings and it might be worth your while.
We will have to wrap.
Doug, can I say one thing about that? I've also got some information I was sent yesterday that's a very good summary of that commercial leasing situation. So I can send that to you guys. I just haven't had a chance to do that this morning. I'll send you that. That can go up on our resource site as well. It's very succinct. So it's probably quite useful for people.
Can I just quickly run through the questions here and get some lightning answers? Should each business wait for the ATO approval and confirmation prior to paying the $1,500 a fortnight?
Not a good question to ask if you want a lightning answer, I can tell you right now.
Okay.
It's unfortunately one of the really bloody difficult ones to answer. Frankly, I don't know if anyone's got a view on that one. Tony, you're the oldest, you go first.
Thanks, Greg. Look, the answer to that is, and the ATO have got that on their webpage today, saying that if you want to be reimbursed, make sure that you make the payment in full, backdated to the 30th of March before the end of this month. Black and white. If you don't, then you will miss out for this month.
But that's why we've got Tony in the crew here, because he knows all the answers to the technical questions, right? But that's a very good answer, because that was a real unknown for me as to exactly how that one's working out. So I'm really pleased you clarified that one. Not probably the answer some people are going to want to hear, because it creates cash flow issues for some businesses.
Oh yeah, I'm just having trouble with the internet, so I think it comes from here. So.
Yeah, someone's talking in the background. He's not on mute. But anyway, so yeah. Anyway, keep going, Doug.
Okay, can you pick and choose which or how many employees you can have on JobKeeper?
No. Right. If the business registers, then it's a one-in-all-in system. That's what the Treasury documents say. Anyone, Ben or Tony, any comments? No.
I agree with that, yeah.
We've got somebody who can't find on the ATO website the special assessment form. Does anyone know the form number or the actual name?
Over to you, Tony.
Sorry, Doug, assessment for what?
I'll tell you what, I'll put that aside. I'll answer that after the meeting. I'll find it. On the website, I receive the $1,500 a fortnight JobKeeper, and I usually pay the employee $1,800. Do I keep them working 38 hours and pay $1,800, or can I reduce the hours to $1,500 gross?
You can reduce the hours proportionally to make the $1,500. There's some processes you've got to follow in order to do that, and we can assist with that if we need to. But yes, there is ways to reduce it. You can't reduce the hourly rate, but you can not unilaterally, right? There could be potentially be an agreement and things like that. But that's another issue and a complicating one. But there is capacity under the laws that have just been announced to reduce that to the $1,500 on a proportional basis. So effectively, the government picks up the whole thing.
Okay, I have an employee who is a 72-year-old and opted to self-isolate due to his age and not attend work. He opted to utilise his annual leave and long service leave while away. This occurred before JobKeeper was announced. Now JobKeeper is available. He may wish to nominate for that rather than use his annual leave, long service leave. But he will not attend work due to isolating. Now I suspect that means he can't get JobKeeper.
No, I wouldn't really agree with that. If he's on annual leave, then he'll certainly be eligible for it. We're assuming the usual things apply. Even if he was on unpaid leave, we've had a look at this issue, and in unpaid leave, you're still going to qualify in most circumstances, right?
Okay.
But there's also capacity now under the latest bunch of legislation, which has just passed on Saturday, or no, sorry, it was on Wednesday last week, and the information that you can actually require, or not require, you can request employees utilise their annual leave whilst they're on the JobKeeper payment. That's if they're stood down. Now, most people aren't going to be stood down in car washes, but you know, they can do it, and then the person can only refuse on reasonable business grounds. So in some circumstances, if the business is effectively closed and the staff have been stood down, they can utilise you can effectively compel them to use their annual leave entitlements during that period, right?
Okay. Well, that just about wraps it. And
there was one other question I saw. Can I just answer one other question quickly?
Sure.
One question came up in relation to what happens to annual leave and sick leave. His annual leave and it's got his annual leave and prenatal leave also payable.
Yes.
You can't get JobSeeker if you're getting the government if you're getting the government endorsed paid parental leave scheme, right? You don't get both, right? But you can get you can be on annual leave and still qualify. I'm hoping that, I think it was Rob.
Okay, now I'll just really quickly open the floor to anybody who wants to unmute and ask a question, or perhaps better to chat a question now before we close down. Did want to point everybody in the direction of the ACWA. The ACWA, here it is, sorry, can't do two things at once, I'm a bloke.
It's old age, Doug.
So I'm just sharing what we're calling the COVID-19 Resource Centre looks like. Lots of frequently answered questions. We'll put a few of these up there as well. Opportunity for people to download those posters we talked about. We've got a full list of government links and links to important papers on all manner of things to do with managing your business better. A lot of them supplied by Graham and our other partners, and then just some generic opportunities to have a look at how Australia is travelling through the whole process. So, if everybody wants information on things they should be doing in their business, please check that. If there's anything there you would like us to put up, or you would like us to track down through our associates, please let us know. We'll do our best to get it. Anybody? Did we get any more questions while I was crapping on then?
I think that's pretty good. I think if people have got further questions, the best thing they can do is, as they've been doing, is just email them in. But encourage you to first go and have a look at the resource site. The guys put a lot of effort into it, so don't just waste an email. Go and have a look at what's on the site. And if you can't find what you're after, then shoot us something. If it's a particular circumstance, I think it's been pretty clear today what's in and what's out. And then if what is grey, and where you should go to get that information. So I think that's very good.
Are you there, Doug?
Yes, mate.
Yeah, before we go, just to make people aware to make use of those templates for those signs for their sites and just flood them everywhere, because it does make a difference.
Yeah, maybe just go back over that, Doug, because you were talking about that before the call was sort of totally filled up, just what we've done with those signs. Or what?
Look, really quickly, because we're probably going to get thrown off. I probably didn't allow enough time, and I'm sorry about that. But over the weekend, here in Victoria particularly, we had a number of overzealous police who took it on themselves to determine that, that the car washing wasn't necessary. In fact, spent a lot of time on Good Friday. These things always seem to happen on the eve of a public holiday, but spent a lot of time on the phone and writing to the police department here in Victoria to get clarification, which we have. And the clarification is that only those businesses who have been declared non-essential can't be attended. So that's gyms, restaurants, bars, all those things we all know about. What the point that was made very clear to me was that each site is responsible for making sure that social distancing and the rules around it are applied. So that means you need to keep your customers 1.5 metres from each other, and you need to keep your staff 1.5 metres from your customers. You might also need to have a look at your site and make sure that your self-serve bays are distant enough apart to comply, and that your vacs are distant enough to comply with those social distancing laws. So the signage that we created was specifically around trying to help protect you and your site, because I know that it's going to be difficult to monitor customers all the time. So please take the opportunity. Richard's holding one of the signs up now. We've got signs created for a number of scenarios. The other thing that the COVID-19 hotline rang me about yesterday, because I placed a number of inquiries with them, was around self-serve bays, and they wanted me to encourage members to either shut down the bays, which is not really our preferred opportunity, or make sure that there's hand sanitizer before and after using the wash bay. Now, that's not essential. I mean, people can go shopping at Kmart and touch things, but they just identify that as a danger at a car wash site. The automatic, they have no problem with at all. So, sorry, that was all a bit long-winded. Long and the short of it is download or send, apply for the poster artwork. Fiona will send it out. Make sure your site's following social distancing laws in your state, and we're all still good to go.
Yeah, Doug, just to be sure that everyone understands it, this is just artwork. It's not the printed posters. So what the guys have done is created the posters for everyone, and you take those files to your local printer, your preferred printer, and you print it out to whatever size, etc. you want. So it's not a sign you have to buy. We've just done the artwork. So just to be totally clear about that.
And that's completely free to members.
And Doug, if the operators want to, they can go and buy themselves a laminator for about $60, and it's not that expensive, and you can do it when you need at home.
Okay, now I'm going to put an end to the meeting.
Doug, can I say one of the things, just to sort of reiterate your point, or you're trying to make there, is that, guys, I would just treat this exactly the same as WorkSafe, right? The idea of WorkSafe is you've got to have all of the signage on your site if they turn up and have a look. So if you don't have any signage on your site and you get a policeman coming in or somebody else, a health person, then they're going to shut you down if you don't have appropriate signage up. So it's a very similar situation. In fact, it is a work health safety situation, right? So treat it like that. Be proactive. That's what we're encouraging you to do. We've created all this artwork, print it out and put it up. At least you can point to that and say, we are telling people what to do. If people then do the wrong thing, then you can put it back on the customer and say, well, they're not doing what they're supposed to be, and we've got all of our information up for them. So that's the concept of it. So just treat it that way, and you should all be fine from what we've seen from all the authorities so far.
And just finally, before we sign off, if there are other topics or any topics, in fact, that you want covered in a future Zoom session like this, please just feel free to either email Fiona or I. We'll bring them together. I hope everyone's found the session useful. Thanks very much to Tony, Graham and Ben for the work that they've put into this. I know I've learned a lot, and I hope others have as well. Thanks again.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Neil.
Yep, good job. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Graham. Ben and Graham and Tony. Thanks for the comments. It was great.
Yeah, thanks, Graham, Ben, and Tony. Well done.
Yeah, good job. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Hey, Reece, you're looking very flash there, mate. What's going on?
Looks are deceiving, Doug. Looks are deceiving.
Well, I guess under
It's
lockdown,
like
you're still allowed to go and see a lawyer, and you're obviously dressed for it.
So it's like car washing, mate. It's all smoke and mirrors.
You no idea.
Hey, yeah, that's exactly right, mate. That's exactly right.
I wish I could say the same thing about you, Blair. What are you allergic to razor blades?
He's just
We're doing that for carnival days these days.
All good.
That was very good, Doug. Thanks, mate. Really good. Thank you.
Yeah, good on you,
Thanks
Doug.
for that.
Cheers, mate.
I'll catch you later.
Good on you, boys. Cheers.